Hello, my name is Marquita de Jesus, and I am a teaching associate and PhD student from the University of Texas at Dallas. I am thrilled to be presenting today. This is a recorded presentation, but I want you to feel free, if anything in this presentation interests you, to reach out to me directly at Marquita teaching associate and PhD student from the University of Texas at Dallas. A little bit about my background: I am a PhD student in the visual and performing arts. My primary area is dance, and looking at the ways in which dance can be used as an act of resistance in marginalized communities amidst marginalizing experiences. So I found my way into what some may term a bizarre marriage between dance and the Holocaust, since dance is usually looked at as a act for celebration or a rites of passage. But dance can also be considered a prayer. It can be considered a form of communication and a way of processing trauma or defining the self. And so in this presentation, we're going to be looking at dance as an act of resistance and a way of reclaiming identity and the body. I got into this work after a really transformative experience overseas. I was invited to Cambodia to work with children who have been rescued from human trafficking. The youngest person rescued was 2, and it was a transformative experience. I was there with other artists who were helping these kids be able to process these horrible things that have been done to them through a creative practice. And I think that for me spurred this journey that has continued today. It is the hallmark of my research, really trying to figure out that when we dance, what exactly is happening with the body? How is the body connecting with the infinite? How do we connect with each other when we dance? And so this study is something I'm very passionate about, and I think that that'll come through in this presentation. But I think it's also important to think of the ways that dance and performance offer these critical threads to understanding how the human spirit gets through these traumatizing circumstances like the Holocaust, or like Jim Crow, or the Pol Pot regime. And there are these dance stories that continuously come up that are really inspiring, and I intend to share 2 of those today. So I am going to share my screen. Holocaust education initiatives prioritize an unwavering commitment to the historical study of the systematic state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany and its collaborators. To this end, historians and educators primarily rely on the preservation of historical artifacts, oral histories, and official documents to expand Holocaust contemporary exploration. However, often missing from these specialized studies are critical threads from performance and dance narratives of resistance. It is impossible to address the experience of the body in a way that bypasses the political. Dance and embodied practices play important roles as signifiers of the ways in which injustice is both systemic and intimate. The practice of dance acknowledges the body as more than a site for violence and oppression. Dance prompts the individual to think critically about their somatic and cognitive self, and offers opportunities to reinterpret internalized data. Through dance and performance, the body becomes a meaning-making force and a site where trauma is transmuted into self-definition, a site where rights and freedoms are experienced somatically amidst marginalizing experiences. From versions of what occurred during the final moments at Auschwitz in the life of Jewish dancer Francesca Mann, to Edith Eger, a teenage Hungarian ballerina who was asked to dance for Dr. Mengele after he ordered her parents' death. The exploration of dance as an act of resistance, resilience, and reclamation is a critical discipline that deepens contemporary and historical interpretations of identity reclamation, resilience, and embodied activism. This paper identifies cultural, political, and aesthetic factors of dance performance narratives that served as access points to somatic reclamation during the Holocaust. Embodiment and ethics. Jewish scholar Emmanuel Levinas stated that in our postmodern world, violence is no longer a political phenomenon of war and peace that functions beyond all morality. Despite our efforts to anesthetize ourselves to the abject horror and evils of the world, the soul remains disturbed and desiring of justice and redemption. That very disturbance opens up the infinite living within the body. When the holy within the human is assaulted, as in the Nazi assault on the soul and bodies of Jews, the mystery and the meaning of the human face and body are challenged, but not transformed. In the time of the Holocaust, the goal was to transform the definition of the Jew, both in their own eyes and in the eyes of others. We were ashamed of one another, Auschwitz survivor Leventhal writes, and dared not look one another in the face. Our eyes were swollen with pain, shame, tears, and lamentations, and each of us burrowed into a hole to avoid meeting one another. As in other art forms, dance practices in camp society were not only witnesses, products, and expressions of the Holocaust, but also responses and resistance to it. Whether objectified, marginalized, or violated, the human body is persistent in its resistance toward disposability, which functions as a measure of resistance and resilience. Humans learn through the body, and our lived experience is also a social experience. When this experience is embodied and processed, we engage in the development of an embodied consciousness. Individual and collective embodied experiences inspire self-definition. Self-definition is the power to name one's own reality. Scholar Patricia Hill Collins articulates that the rejection of the dominant group's definition and a rising awareness of the subordinate group's own self-definition indicates a collective consciousness within the marginalized community. Collins describes the process of self-definition as a journey from internalized oppression to the free mind. This decentering of the dominant group's definition allows for an exit from the margins and an internalized liberatory experience that can be experienced individually and transmuted collectively as forms of resilience and reclamation. The abject dehumanization of Jewish identity and objectification of the Jewish body by Nazis reinforced oppression by first perpetuating the dominant group's definition of the Jewish body. This marginalization upheld the matrix of domination that sustained intersecting levels of oppression and made Jewish subjugation seem natural and normal. Embodied oppression recognizes the degree to which our bodies are implicated in the reproduction of trauma and ongoing subjugation. This widespread and bewildering experience of trauma asks the question, what does it mean to have a marginalized body? And what are the ways in which this body can be reclaimed from subjugation? Through dance and embodied practices, the self is able to translate experiences into a framework that allows for the transmutation of meaning and self-definition. Dance and embodied experiences can be critical agents in the reconstruction of body stories. Dance and the Holocaust. Through dance, professional, folk, traditional, and religious, the nearly annihilated Jewish body gave vigor when only death had been the plan. By placing the dancing body in the center of historical reflection, endeavors to deepen and enrich some perspectives on resistance and resilience allow for an integrated approach to the complexity of performing in camp society. Through the skills and drive of the dancers in transit camps, concentration camps, and extermination camps, dance as a tool to continue Jewish identity, Jewish expression, and resistance continued, increasing the sense of hope and the urge to survive in manifold ways. Dance performance and creating somatic meaning. The practice of dance helps to reinterpret and create meaning of our individual and shared experiences. Dancing prompts the individual to think critically about their world and offers opportunities to reinterpret visual and internalized data. Dance, when deconstructed, stresses individuality and the diversity of interpretive processes. This, in turn, allows for the cultivation of cognitive skills necessary for effective interpretation and self-definition. As dancers dance, we are psychologically visualizing outcomes and practicing anatomical creative responses that ultimately affect internal and external processing. Through movement, dancers are able to tap into a realm that transcends verbal language. Engaging in dance often leads to an embodied state of being, where the dancer becomes fully immersed in the present moment. This heightened state of awareness allows the dancers to move beyond their constraints and experience a profound connection to the infinite and the other. Dance and the Holocaust. This is a quote from a study that I thought the entire quote was very valuable, and so I'm going to read the entire thing to you, and that'll be our transition into this story of Francesca Mann. I'm impressed first and foremost by the agency and creativity deployed by the deportees to cope with processes of dehumanization. They relied not only on their cultural resources and social networks, but also on the body techniques, the ways in which people in different societies learn how to use their bodies, and creative abilities that they gained in their former lives. Even if for only short moments, they were able to reconnect with mindful bodies and creative spirit, improvising dances, expressive movements, or recreative games, helping each other with gestures of support and care. As such, these experiences belong to a history of survival and resistance, considered in its daily and spiritual gestures. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, some survivors found ways to transform these experiences into the driving force of commitments in arts, therapies, and conflict resolution issues. Here pictured is Francesca Mann, the first dancer that we will discuss today. On October 23, 1943, at just 26 years old, ballerina Francesca Mann killed Nazi guard Joseph Schillinger and injured 2 others at Auschwitz. Mann was born in Warsaw, Poland, and became a beautiful and talented ballerina thought to have the most potential among her generation of dancers in Poland. At the age of 22, she won 4th place in an international competition in Brussels, in which the best young dancers from the world took part. At the beginning of World War II, Mann worked as a dancer in the famous Melody Palace Club until she was not allowed to dance after being transferred to the Warsaw Ghetto. When Mann was hiding in Warsaw, she and a few thousand other Jews were tricked by Germans in what is known as the Hotel Polski affair. They were promised that they would be taken to Switzerland and exchanged with the Allies in return for German prisoners of war. However, their train's last stop was actually Auschwitz, where they arrived on October 23, 1943. Once at Auschwitz, the women were told to remove their clothing, which they had been wearing since they had left Poland, so they could be sanitized before crossing the border. At this point, Mann cleverly realized the ruse and began to formulate her attack. With most of the witnesses left dead, multiple interpretations of Mann's revolt formed. One version of the event details how Mann began her insurgence by performing a dance for 3 Nazi guards. According to this version, she danced as she removed her clothes and then her shoes, which distracted the guards enough for her to hurl her high heel at a senior squad leader, Walter Quickernack. He grabbed his firearm after he fell to the ground in anguish. She then shot Nazis Joseph Schillinger and Wilhelm Emmerich. Schillinger died a few hours later, and Emmerich was left with a permanent limp. Another version of events describe how, when ordered to strip completely, Mann threw her bra at the guard's head and hurled herself into him, enabling her to grab his firearm and shoot at the guards. This incident of a dancer-led female uprising is one of the most unusual acts of resistance in Auschwitz. Pictured here are the ruins of the undressing room at the crematorium II at Auschwitz, where Mann is thought to have revolted. The second story we're going to look at is the story of Edith Eger. Born in 1927 in Košice, Slovakia, Edith Eger lived a typical Jewish life. Eager attended a gymnastics academy and took ballet lessons, which led her to qualifying as a member of the Hungarian Olympic gymnastics team. In 1942, the Hungarian government enacted new anti-Jewish laws, and she was removed from the gymnastics team. The family eventually moved to Budapest, Hungary, where in 1944, Nazis put them on a cattle car to Auschwitz. Weeks later, in a dark, crowded train bound for Auschwitz, her mother tells Eager, "We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you've put in your mind." When the cattle car doors opened in May 1944, the Nazis separated everyone according to gender. Dr. Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, commands Eager's mother to go to the left. "You're going to see your mother very soon. She's just going to take a shower," he says ominously. A female Nazi soldier coldly dashes Eager's hopes. Pointing to smoke from distant chimneys, she says, "Your mother is burning in there." Staring at the chimney atop the building their mother had entered, her sister Magda reassures her, "The soul never dies." Edie had a second interaction with Dr. Mengele shortly following this encounter when he discovered she was a ballerina and gymnast and demanded she dance for him. Commanded to entertain Mengele with the ballet performance, Eager imagined herself dancing for fans at the Budapest Opera House, and in that moment she was able to view the seasoned killer before her as a pitiful prisoner of his evil choices. She was free in her mind, which he could never be. Eager's experience was one where she was able to connect within and see beyond the horror of Auschwitz and Dr. Mengele. She was able to see the angel of death not as one who had power over her, but as one who suffered by his own hand. Her performance netted her a loaf of bread, which she shared with her sister and their bunkmates, a gesture that would later save her life. During a death march, when Eager couldn't walk further due to exhaustion, one of the girls with whom she shared Mengele's bread recognized her and carried her onward, which allowed her to survive until her liberation, which happened only a few days later. After her rescue, Eager befriended Viktor Frankl, went into therapy, and received her PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Texas at El Paso in 1978. She also received her license to practice as a psychologist with the goal of recovering from her anger and survivor's guilt. She shared her story in her book, The Choice. On May 4th, 2019, the 74th anniversary of her liberation and a National Day of Remembrance in the Netherlands, Eager spoke at the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. Then she watched the prima ballerina of the Dutch National Ballet perform a piece inspired by Eager's first night in Auschwitz when she danced for Mengele. Calling the Dutch ballet one of the most cherished experiences of her life, Eager was awed by the depiction of beauty and transcendence in hell. Mengele appeared to be a hungry ghost, sad and empty, trapped by his need for power and control. The stories of Man and Eager are powerful examples of the ways in which the body can become a meaning-making force and a site for self-definition amidst marginalizing experiences. These two stories demonstrate internal forms of liberation when dance acts as a form of resistance, resilience, and reclamation. The practice of dance helps to interpret and create meaning of our individual and shared experiences. Embodied acts of resistance emphasize the significance of the body in shaping our internal experiences and actions, and recognize the integral role of the body in escaping marginalization. The value of these acts of resistance cannot be measured in the outcome alone, but we must take into account the empowerment these stories gave to the Jewish community who were witnesses. The acts reminded them that in the face of ongoing objectification, they were still human. They were mothers, daughters, lovers, and dancers. Dance matters because people matter, and understanding the value of dance is a critical addition to understanding the role embodiment plays in liberation. That is all for my presentation. I am going to include 2 links so that you're able to watch more about the stories of Eager and Francesca Mann. But if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to reach out to me. I so wish I could be there to present to you all live, but I am thrilled that I'm able to at least offer some insights about my research into the Holocaust from the perspective of a dance scholar. So thank you so much, and I would love to connect soon.
Hello, my name is Dr. Edith Eva Eager. People call me Dr. Edie, and I'm going to talk to you today about an important word called courage. And I am so happy to let you know that today I'm your guide. Put your seat belts on, and I'm going to take you to Auschwitz. This is the day when my parents were murdered. I am in this barrack, wanting to just disappear. I'm petrified. And yet, the girl's pointing to me, telling me that I was chosen to entertain the very man who annihilated my family that day. The door is opened. Here walks someone in a white coat, excuse me, with his cohorts, and wants to know how can he be entertained. And I see the girl's eyes on me, and I want to disappear, and the girl's pointing me and tell the doctor, you're going to be entertained, and here is someone who's going to dance for you. And this is the time when I remembered that I don't know what I have within me, but I knew I had to shine. And I began to dance, doing my high kick, doing the split, and the music was Tchaikovsky, and I was dancing the Romeo and Juliet, not to the girls who were the prisoners, but a very elegant audience in a Budapest opera house. And closing my eyes still, I finish with the split, and he hands me a piece of bread. My temptation was there to eat the piece of bread. I was very hungry. And then I looked up and I saw my sister and the girls, and thank God, I didn't touch that bread until I shared it with the girls. And when I was in a death march, April 1945, and when you stopped, you were shot. And the girls that I shared the bread with came, they picked me up and they carried me so I wouldn't die. Isn't it amazing how courage can really save your life in situations that was unexpected and totally unanticipated? When I began to work with two paraplegics, I realized that I could not take them further unless I looked at my past that I ran away from. And for that, I had to muster enough courage to go back to Auschwitz and to be able to reclaim the innocence and the freedom. And when I asked my sister to join me, she told me I'm an idiot. I will be just re-traumatized. Friends said the same thing. And yet, thank God, I had enough courage to listen to my inner voice and go through the valley of the shadow of death and going through the pain and have the courage to revisit the place where I've been and reclaim my innocence. But I'm thinking now that I left part of me in Auschwitz. And I could not do that in a therapist's office. I had to go back to that place and to be able to have courage to feel that pain again, one more time, before I say goodbye to that part of me that held me hostage and prisoner of the past. Thank you for being with me. I hope today maybe you will put on a pair of glasses and look at the same thing from a different perspective. You can look at it as an opportunity for you to discover something that you can get up tomorrow morning, you can look in a mirror and practice self-love that is self-care and it's not narcissistic. I hope to hand you the courage that is within you to be free from fear, from anxiety, from anger, from frustration, the concentration camp of your own mind, and the key is in your pocket and it's called courage.